These are not my top tips for GMAT Data Insights, but they are tips you may not have heard. I'm Erika with Target Test Prep, and today I want to share 6 underrated GMAT Data Insights tips. Now, if you haven't seen Julia's really excellent video, Data Insights Tips from an 805 GMAT scorer, I highly recommend that you check that out because it goes over some of the most important strategies for this section. But in this video, we're going to focus on some of the tips that video and most of the other ones on YouTube don't cover. Let's jump in. My first underrated tip for GMAT Data Insights is to use old prep materials. Data Insights was introduced as a section on the GMAT in late 2023, but while the section is new, the questions are old. Data sufficiency used to make up 50% of the questions on the Quant section, and all of the other Data Insights question types were part of a section called Integrated Reasoning, or IR. Now, more and more Data Insights prep materials have become available over the last 2 years since the section's launch. However, the integrated reasoning section was on the test for 11 years, having been introduced in 2012, and data sufficiency was part of the quant section for around 2.5 decades, having been introduced in the mid-90s. So there is a ton of great prep content for each of the question types that a lot of test takers miss out on because it isn't data insight specific. Now, of course, if you do use pre-2023 materials, there are some things you'll need to keep in mind. For example, the integrated reasoning section was not adaptive, but the data insight section definitely is. Data sufficiency used to include a lot more pure math question content and none of the criteria-based content that we see today. But as long as you have a current understanding of the data insights section structure and a healthy amount of current data sufficiency practice, you can really benefit from old materials. Even the old pure math data sufficiency questions can be useful. While the content isn't current, the question structure and underlying logic are, so they can be great practice for understanding value versus yes-no sufficiency and nailing down your logical approach. Which leads us to our next tip. Take data sufficiency statements out of order. Now, this is mainly in response to a strategy that is pretty popular, which is to think of data sufficiency answer choices as A, D, B, C, E. Now, if statement 1 is sufficient, the answer is in your top row, A or D. If statement 1 is insufficient, the answer is in your bottom row, B, C, or E, and then you narrow it down from there. And I don't hate this strategy for beginners. But using it religiously is, to me, a sign of an immature data sufficiency process, because it assumes you're going to start with statement 1. And sometimes statement 2 is the easier statement, which means that evaluating it first not only gets us deeper into the problem-solving process earlier on, but it also can provide valuable insights that we can take into evaluating statement 1. Not because we're going to use the statements together, that would be a mistake, but because an easy second statement is typically either a hint or a trap. Some information that we definitely do need to answer the question, or information that we're going to think we need to answer the question. And having an awareness of the information in statement 2 can shape how we approach statement 1, again, without actually using that information. So if you're a newbie still learning which statement is which, by all means, use ADBCE to stay organized. But if you're trying to level up your data sufficiency strategy, start with whichever statement is easiest. Let me know in the comments if you want a video on advanced data sufficiency strategy. It is the most complex question type on the exam, and getting really familiar with the various logical forms the questions take can really help with seeing through the test maker's designs. My third underrated data insights tip is to treat datasets like reading comprehension passages. You've probably heard that treating multi-source reasoning questions like reading comprehension is a good idea, and that's 100% true. Both question types feature multiple questions based around one bundle of information. For these questions, it's pretty uncontroversial that the best strategic approach is to first process that bundle of information, paying attention to passage elements like main idea, structure, and purpose, and summarizing as we go, and only then approaching the questions. This baseline understanding gives us near immediate answers to broader questions, as well as a map to locate answers to more specific questions. It's a highly rated tip. But for some reason, I don't see the same tip applied to multi-part questions based around one dataset, specifically graphics interpretation and table analysis, with anywhere near the same frequency. But it works just as well. We first process the dataset at a very high level, paying attention to main idea, titles and subtitles, structure, scale, units, labels, legends, notes, and purpose, major trends, if any. If none jump out at you, that's fine. And we summarize what the dataset is meant to convey as we go. Then we approach the questions. And just like in reading comprehension, this gives us quick and confident broad answers as well as a framework for finding more specific answers. Having a solid grasp on our data set helps us answer questions faster while avoiding the common misinterpretations that they're setting us up for. Speaking of common misinterpretations, tip number 4 is to be wary of percents. This is true for literally every question type in Data Insights, as well as word problems in Quant and critical reasoning in Verbal. Percents are notorious for creating potential misinterpretations. Is it a value or a percent? Okay, is it a percent of this or of that? Or is it a percent of or a percent change? Okay, is it a change from this or from that? And ratios and proportions do the exact same thing. Anything that isn't a value but instead a relationship of two values needs extra attention. These are classic traps woven into questions across sections, but I find that the extra layer of working with datasets distracts test takers, causing them to slip up more frequently on data insights. So if you see a percent, be on your guard. These mistakes are easy to make, but they are just as easy to avoid if we pay attention. Underrated data insights tip number 5 is to know your chances on multi-part questions. Surprise probability lesson here. When you are presented with a multi-part question, that is a question with multiple prompts on the same question screen, you are required to get each prompt correct in order to get the overall question correct. There is no partial credit. So for a table analysis or multi-source reasoning question with 3 binary prompts, you have a 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 equals 1/8, or 12.5% chance of guessing correctly. This is lower than our usual 20% chance on a standard 5-answer multiple choice. For a graphics interpretation question with 2 prompts, each with 3 to 4 answer choices in the dropdown, your chances are somewhere between 1/16 and 1/9, or 6 to 11%. That's quite a bit worse. For a 2-part analysis question with 2 prompts sharing the same 5 to 6 answer choices, your chances are between 1/36th and 1/25th, or less than 3% to at most 4%. Really, really low chances. So what does this mean for our test-taking strategy? Essentially, if you aren't confident in your problem-solving process, don't chase these questions too hard. With a standard 5-answer multiple choice, investing time and effort into making an educated guess makes sense because you have a decent chance of guessing correctly, especially if you can eliminate 1 or 2 wrong answers. The more components a question has, the more likely you are to burn a bunch of time not getting the question right, and the more honest with yourself you need to be. These are good candidates for cutting your losses to preserve momentum and instead saving to revisit during mark and review. My 6th and final tip is to follow along with your cursor. This is kind of a goofy one. In Julia's Data Insights video, she mentions that one of the main challenges of the section is having to sift through way more information than you need, and she's absolutely right. That's one of the reasons that we treat so much of the section like reading comprehension. But before we can figure out what information is important, we have to be able to process the information at all. And there's something about graphics and tables, more so than passages, that really makes your eyes glaze over. It's easy to get lost between columns or rows, lines or bars. So what do we do? Well, imagine you are presented with the same information and the same questions on a pen and paper test. How would you approach finding a piece of data? Physically, what would you do with your body? Well, if you're like most people, you'd put your finger or your pencil on the paper. You'd trace down columns, across rows, along lines, or up and over from the axes to locate what it is you're looking for without losing track of where you are. Well, great news! You can also do this on a computer-based test, just with your cursor. Now, this might seem really obvious, but you would be surprised at how often test takers skip this. And before they know it, they're going cross-eyed, trying to stay focused on a piece of information and wondering why they keep losing their place and why their head hurts so bad. I even sometimes will hold my finger in the air to visually pin a piece of information, and then I'll trace outward from it with my cursor. Now, this looks very silly, and honestly, in an at-home testing environment, might get flagged for suspicious behavior, but in a testing center environment, it is absolutely fair game, and the embarrassment is worth the points you save. And those are 6 underrated tips for GMAT Data Insights. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, leave us a comment. And if this video helped you, give it a like, and subscribe for more videos from me every Wednesday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.